It's Adrienne Lawrence, and we are here on TYT's The Conversation. And I have a bit of a political palate cleanser for you. It is some good stuff. I'm joined by a pair of talented storytellers. It's Academy Award nominated filmmaker Kahani Cooperman and 6-time Emmy-winning filmmaker John Hoffman. And this pair, well, they put together a feature documentary titled The Antidote. Welcome in, John and Kahani.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, so foremost, congrats on getting The Antidote done. And just to help everybody out, I want to hear in your words, what is The Antidote about? Kahani, go ahead.
Well, The Antidote is a film that weaves stories from all over the country about kindness, decency, and the power of community in America. It's very much made in response to the times we're living in and acknowledging that there are some unkindnesses that are a fact of everyday life for many Americans. And so this is a look at everyday people who have made the intentional choice to lift others up in their communities.
That is excellent, especially now, because as we know, 2020, the hits keep coming. It is a dark year, to say the least. And I know it's easy to court despair in the face of these monumental structural problems. But what really made you want to create this film that made you say society needs us? John, go ahead.
Well, we are deeply affected by the forces that are trying to divide us. And so we felt, Kahani and I felt that we needed to look at the forces that unite us. We needed to look at the forces that, as Kahani says, weave our communities together. And it's our fundamental belief, and it's the belief of many, that those are very powerful forces, and they are alive. And that if we don't understand them, if we don't recognize them, if we don't value them, we run the risk of letting them start to erode and this divisiveness start to eat at those forces of good, in our communities. And so this is a film that really is a very serious look at those forces to really remind us, that there's a lot of good that we are surrounded by every day, but how do you not just notice it, but how do you then sort of nourish it in the communities you live in?
That hits me, John, in part just because it seems like you capture that so well. Kahani, do you have anything else you wanted to add to that?
Well, I just think that it is a really serious look at kindness, and that it's very easy to think of the word kindness and look at it as soft. But we just don't see it that way. We see it as like an incredibly powerful tool. And so we're hoping that people who see this film or even hear about it realize that while random acts of kindness are wonderful, this is about intentional acts and everyday people like you, like me, who are looking around them and asking themselves, like, what resources within myself can I use and give and help other people? And so, I'm really proud of this film where as much as these individual stories that are part of the film are all incredibly powerful, I think it's the way they all work together. The sum is greater than the parts, and it's, in a sense, a portrait of our country, and it's like who we are and who we can be, I think.
Very cool. Kalani, that really kind of hits me when you say the sum is greater than the parts. And unfortunately, we've seen so much division within the last 4 years in particular. And we see people moving toward, let's see what we can do to unify. But I'd love to explore both of your thoughts in terms of how do you think we got here? It doesn't necessarily have to be a political bent or any particular angle, but why do you think people are struggling so much to show compassion, to uplift, to be willing to stick their neck out, to see that the sum is greater than the part?
Well, I think that we are a country that has struggled with division from the very beginning. And there's a historical context from the way that this country was settled, and the way that Native communities were treated from the very beginning, and then the legacy of slavery, cannot be ignored in looking at how that has shaped the psyche of this nation. And so we made a film that is made with an awareness and a deep sensitivity to what we call the fundamental unkindnesses that we have grappled with as a country for generations, and that it's issues around poverty. So we say that it's fundamentally unkind someone to not. We say that it's fundamentally unkind to not have access to healthcare. It's fundamentally unkind to not be paid a living wage. And if you just look at those three alone, you're talking about structural issues that are so ingrained and so baked into our history. But we also say that there's a fourth dimension of fundamental kindness, which is the injustices of racism and sexism and homophobia. So these are stories of people who are, and organizations and institutions that are all actively working against those historical, structural inequities and divisions, forces of division.
That's really powerful. And I completely understand that in terms of seeing those power structures and how divisive they can be, and also how oppressive they can be, particularly when it comes to individuals trying to have a living wage or trying to have equal pay, equal justice, and all of the things that we see hold people down. And one thing I would really love to tap into, because it sounds like you all made this film mid-COVID, or at least in this new era that we have, where we have social distancing going on. So how did you get this done?
We actually completed it during COVID, but all the filming was done prior to COVID. And so we shot all of 2018 and about half of 2019 before we headed to the edit room, but we did have to complete the film remotely, talking to our editors like this to finish it up. But I'm really glad we did, and it's really, in addition to the messages of the film, I find great comfort in seeing all these images of people together and communicating with each other and connecting with each other. It has been a helpful reminder during, I think, these trying times to be so immersed in those individuals who we tell the stories of, and just the communities they live in, and remembering the time that was and where we'll be hopefully going back to soon.
Wow. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I just want to jump in to say that when COVID happened, we had to ask ourselves, that question: will the film work in a COVID era, even a post-COVID era? And we found that people who we asked to screen the film found the film actually more important, more necessary. But then George Floyd was murdered, and we had to say, the discussion that's going on in this country around, the ways that, that the Black community in this country is unfairly treated over and over and over again, if not murdered. So we had to ask: are the issues that we're raising in this film going to be relevant in not only a COVID world, but a world that has a whole new level of thinking around Black Lives Matter? And so again, we asked ourselves that hard question, and again we returned because of wise counsel of people saying your film is actually more poignant now.
Oh, absolutely. And I was blown away, because I was thinking you must have filmed this during COVID because of how important and impactful it would be. And it's really kind of, I'm just wowed by the fact that it's so fortuitous. It's almost like you couldn't have set this up any better, because this is exactly what we need right now. The antidote is exactly what we need, which is really cool. And we only have a few minutes left. And so I would really love to hit on, what is the impact and the takeaway you want people to have from this film?
Kahani?
Thanks. That's a great question. I think that for me, the most important thing that I want people to take away is when they see these stories and meet the incredible people in our film, that they realize that they're, whether you're a person giving or receiving, that you can do it too. And it's not just for, someone who studied this or has that degree. It's like anyone can do it on any level. And by do it, I mean help other people and help your community and make your community and the people in it have better lives. So that would be, my dream would be that that's what people take away, that like, hey, I can do this and I want to do this.
Kahani Cooperman, John Hoffman, thank you for joining us. The Antidote will be released to theaters October 16th for virtual screenings and then released October 27th for video on demand streaming services. You can learn more at theantidotemovie.com. Thanks so much for joining us, guys.
Thank you
so much.
Thanks for watching this free clip of the Young Turks. Don't forget to become a TYT member today. For more exclusive content, join now at tyt.com/join.